Oh, hey there, Mr. Young here. Today, we're learning about basically U.S. Government 101, and how to be a good citizen. Right here is my copy of the U.S. Constitution, and a lot of what we're going to learn today is the very basics of what's in here. So let's get started. I imagine you just finished watching that old video from Schoolhouse Rocks. I found that last year, and it was a pretty good starting video for this lesson, because that's a lot of what we're going to learn about today. So here we are, the good old US of A. Anyone who has been educated to this point is aware that the U.S. Constitution is the highest law of the land here. Many of the ideas that we use in the U.S. Constitution actually came from ancient civilizations that we're going to learn about. Civilizations like those of Greece and Rome. And you'll learn about some of these, at the time, very profound ideas that are in the Constitution next year when we learn about the writing of the Constitution. So here in the USA, we have a representative government. We don't run the government ourselves. I don't go to Washington, D.C. every weekend and help legislate. But we do elect people to do it for us. It is the job of these elected individuals to follow the will of the people. That's how it's supposed to work. Now, our founders created what's called a federal system of government. In the simplest of terms, this means that there is a federal government in charge, but it shares power with the state governments. Like every state has its own government. There's Pennsylvania state government, California state government, New Jersey state government, Wyoming state government. They all have their own government. And this is why the laws are different in each state, like, say, the legal drinking age, or when you're allowed to drive, and, why you're not allowed to sing in the shower, and stuff like that. There are laws in each state. Each state has its own governments, and therefore makes its own laws. The federal government and the state governments are in somewhat a constant power struggle over what laws should be made by who. But I found this nifty Venn diagram here showing that power is held by the state and federal governments. For example, the national government is in charge of foreign policy and interstate trade, copyright, patent laws, things like that. Post office, making money. But the states can establish local governments. The states are in charge of schools like ours. It's controlled by Pennsylvania. States conduct elections and then do things like public safety. That's like fire departments, police departments, stuff like that. Alright, so that's the federal system. When you get down to our government, the federal government, it's broken into three separate and theoretically equal branches of government. You may have heard of them. They're called the executive, legislative, and judicial branches. Each branch has its own role in government, and this is called a separation of powers. It was created in this way so that no one branch becomes too powerful. So the executive branch, being the president, can't run the country by him or herself, nor can the Congress or the court system. They're all equal. The most how do they stay equal? You have this thing called checks and balances. Basically, each branch has a little bit of a hand in the other branch's business, so they're always keeping each other in check. That's why it's called checks and balances. That's how they stay equal. The most popular of the checks and balances is probably the presidential veto, where Congress will make a law, and then the president doesn't like it, he can veto it, and then it goes back to the Congress, and they can override the veto with a more significant majority. So I have this nice chart here that shows the different branches and how they can check each other, and this is a cool thing to know. Now, this chart shows more details than you'll need, but like I said, it's a good example. Here's a rundown of the three branches again now. We have the executive branch. This is the president and his appointments. The executive branch they have the job of enforcing the law. The legislative branch, also known as the Congress, being the House of Representatives, and then the Senators, the Senate, they make the laws. And the judicial branch is the Supreme Court and the court system. They interpret the law. Now let's change gears. That's Government 101. Let's talk about citizenship. Now your book goes on in detail about citizenship, and that is important, but I'm going to be a bit more concise. Basically, we all live here, and even though our country has issues, it's a great place to live. All of us are wealthier than most of the other citizens of the world. Even our poor people have excellent standards of living compared to people in, say, third world countries. That's just the standard of living here. We've been a top world power for over a century, and hopefully we stay there. My point is, we're lucky to live here, and we should take a little bit of time to help keep it a great place and make it a better place. So we should try to be good citizens. There are a few roles that we can play in doing this, and even as minors, you can do a lot of these things too. So number one, follow the laws. They're made for our own good most of the time. Serve on a jury if required. It's really the duty of all citizens to serve on a jury if called. We all have the right to trial by jury by our peers, so in turn you would want that right. So if you're called to be a juror, you should do it so that you can expect the same thing in return. Naturalization means if you move here, you need to be a citizen. It is hard to run a country if you don't know who's living there. That's it. You won't want people living in your house if you don't know they're there or who they are. Be aware. We vote, essentially setting the course of the country, so it's best to be informed on the issues so you can make informed voting decisions. You'll get there when you're 18. Number 5 I call don't be a jerk. The strength of the nation in part comes from diversity. You don't have to like everyone, but you should respect everyone. And number 6, do your part to make the community better. A little effort on a local level can go a long way. For example, if everyone in the community decided to pick up litter on Thursdays, and everyone did that one Thursday of the month, imagine how clean the whole country would be. Now take that and extrapolate it on any problem in the country. And think of all the possibilities. Anyway, Captain America, I was feeling patriotic. Alright, in the last lesson, we talked a little bit about globalization. The world is becoming a smaller place, and as a result, the world's problems are kind of becoming everyone's problems. And some problems cross borders. For example, a big thing right now, not as much this year as it was last year, is the Syrian civil war. So the civil war in Syria, a whole bunch of people are becoming refugees, leaving the country, and they need places to go, but there's so many of them that countries are fighting over who's going to take these refugees and who's going to take these refugees and how many should we take and things like that. As a global citizen, let's see this as a global problem now. It was a problem in one country, now it's a problem for everyone. As a global citizen, one of the best things that you can do to be a good global citizen is just to be informed on those matters. Don't believe everything you hear on TV or read on the internet. You kind of have to look at multiple sources and draw your own conclusions. Alright, that's our lesson in a nutshell. For today's assignment, I have a simple task. I want you to post in the discussion board right here on how you are a good citizen or how you plan to be a good citizen when you become an adult. Remember, you can be a good citizen of the USA and a good citizen of the world. I will post first, so you have a good example. In the lesson, I mentioned multiple ways that you can be a good citizen, so look there for guidance if you need it. Please use complete sentences, and you can write, about one paragraph, like 4 sentences. So here's my example, and there you go. That's your assignment for the day. If you need anything, let me know. Otherwise, have a good one.